From the outside, the Black Palace appeared unremarkable and compact. Yet once inside, it revealed a vast interior, dominated by 7 or 8 colossal rings encased in transparent restrictions. Each ring spanned 5,000 to 6,000 feet, and every one of them was surrounded by seas of roaring spectators. Han Li stood at the entrance, his gaze sweeping across the arena, where fierce clashes unfolded without pause. Some rings hosted one-on-one duels between savage demon beasts. Others devolved into chaotic melees with multiple combatants, while still others pitted cultivators against beasts. Whenever blood was drawn, thunderous cheers erupted from the crowd. The savage spectacle stirred a deep bloodlust among the onlookers, who shouted and howled in exhilaration. At the heart of the arena stood a massive stone plaque, engraved with the current and upcoming matchups, along with betting odds. Han Li frowned slightly at the sight. Though he was no stranger to such arenas, he found little pleasure in their brutal revelry. Scanning the crowd again, his eyes soon caught a familiar figure beside one of the rings. Jin Tong, no different from the rest of the spectators, was shouting at the top of her lungs. Her face flushed with excitement. Han Li sighed softly and walked toward her. Oblivious to his approach, she yelled furiously, as if she wished to leap into the ring herself. "Jump! Use your tail! Ah, what an idiot!" Han Li followed her gaze to the ring, where 2 ferocious beasts were locked in mortal combat. One was a massive lizard over 100 feet long, clad in dark purple scales, its tail lined with hooked spikes, and its maw bristling with sword-like fangs. Its opponent resembled a towering lion 70 or 80 feet tall, crowned with a single horn and wielding anchor-like claws. A spark of interest flickered in Han Li's eyes. Both were primordial demon beasts captured from the primordial land, their demonic power sealed to ensure the safety of the spectators. Blood sprayed across the ring as scales and fur flew. Jin Tong was clearly cheering for the lizard, but it was being steadily driven back. With a low roar, the lizard retreated like lightning and swept its spiked tail in a vicious arc. Yet the horned beast moved with shocking agility, dodging aside before lunging forward. Its fangs clamped onto the lizard's tail, and with a violent wrench, it hurled the lizard into the surrounding restriction. In a blink, the horned beast pounced again, its horn plunging into the lizard's belly and pinning it fast. Blood poured forth as the lizard wailed and struggled, its movements growing weaker until it fell still. With a final toss, the victor flung the corpse aside. Cheers thundered as the horned beast stood tall, horn raised proudly to the sky. Jin Tong stamped her foot in frustration. Beside her, a purple-robed young man chuckled. "Looks like I win this time." Jin Tong snorted, telling him not to get cocky over a single bet. Han Li was taken aback. Jin Tong rarely tolerated other cultivators. He glanced at the man, his pupils tightening. Though the man displayed a true immortal aura, Han Li saw through the disguise at once. A mid-golden immortal demonic cultivator. "Jin Tong," Han Li called. She spun around and rushed over. Delighted, the purple-robed man turned as well. He appeared young, with slightly curled white hair, handsome features, and striking light purple pupils. Han Li scolded Jin Tong for disappearing all day, while she sheepishly invited him to join the fun. Ignoring her antics, Han Li asked after the man's identity. Jin Tong introduced him as Shi Chuankong. Shi Chuankong stepped forward and saluted, identifying himself as a primordial hunter. As his sleeves fell back, fine purple scales were revealed on his forearms. Han Li returned the salute, giving the name Li Feiyu. Shi Chuankong spoke amiably, explaining that he and Jin Tong had been betting together, and Han Li replied with polite gratitude for looking after her. Shi Chuankong then proposed travelling together to the primordial land, but Han Li declined, citing other plans. Despite Shi Chuankong's attempt to persuade him to stay and place bets, Han Li refused once more. As fresh cheers erupted from another ring, Jin Tong's eyes lit up, but Han Li dragged her away regardless. Shi Chuankong watched them go with a disappointed shake of the head. Outside the arena, Han Li questioned Jin Tong. She explained that she and Shi Chuankong had been betting against each other. When asked her impression, she said he smelled similar to Han Li, and thus didn't annoy her. Han Li warned her to be cautious, sensing hidden depths to the man. Jin Tong nodded earnestly, vowing not to lose to him again, leaving Han Li momentarily speechless. They returned to the faint smoke garden. Over the next day, Han Li prepared supplies for the journey into the primordial land and kept Jin Tong from wandering freely as a precaution. Though information about the primordial land itself was scarce, he learned of the nearby Sea of Sand. Far from barren, it contained earth attribute spirit materials and sand beasts whose sand crystals were prized like demon cores. Many cultivators hunted there, but recent disturbances had led to numerous disappearances, casting a shadow of unease over the region. Half a month passed like drifting clouds, and in the blink of an eye, the long-awaited day of departure arrived. At dawn, Han Li left the faint smoke garden and headed straight for the western city gate. Jin Tong curled quietly around his finger like an unassuming ring. The biannual ship departure was a major event in Primordial Origin City. Not only cultivators bound for the journey had gathered, but countless onlookers as well, filling the area with a restrained yet heavy atmosphere. When Han Li arrived, hundreds of cultivators were already lined up inside the city wall, standing before the entrance of a black stone hall, ship tickets in hand, awaiting inspection. After joining the queue, Han Li swept his gaze across the crowd. Only a small number were true immortals, the vast majority were Grand Ascension cultivators. This did not surprise him. Experience had long shown that those below the Grand Ascension stage stood almost no chance of surviving the primordial land, even within charted regions. Yet even for Grand Ascension cultivators, survival was far from guaranteed. Still, they were willing to gamble their lives for a sliver of hope, an opportunity that might allow them to ascend to immortality. Though the line was long, scarcely anyone spoke aloud. Even those who had come in groups communicated through hushed whispers or voice transmission. The solemn silence hung heavily in the air. A short while later, the sun crested the city wall, its first light spilling across the ground below. At the same time, a bell tolled from above, its deep sound echoing through the gate. As the bell faded, a black-robed elderly man emerged from the hall and announced that boarding had begun. One by one, cultivators entered the hall. When Han Li's turn came, he handed over his black spirit talisman. The elder produced a white jade badge and pressed it against the talisman, which instantly dissolved into black smoke and seeped into the jade. Moments later, the words, A-Grade Cabin 13, appeared upon its surface. Taking the badge, Han Li noticed fine characters engraved on its reverse. As he walked into the hall, he flipped it over. At the top was the word Rules, followed by a list. Fighting aboard the ship was strictly forbidden, punishable by death. Leaving the ship for any reason was likewise forbidden, also punishable by death. There were 17 rules in total, most of which carried the same grim consequence. At the rear of the hall stood a stone staircase leading upward. Han Li followed the flow of people and soon emerged atop the vast city wall. From above, it appeared even broader than it had from below, wide enough for 100 people to walk abreast. Ancient black stone slabs paved the surface, scarred by countless marks left by time. Dozens of massive yellow Lushuans hovered above the wall. Their hulls bulged at the center and tapered at the ends, devoid of ornamentation, yet entirely encased in a strange metallic shell etched with archaic runes. The ships bore numerous scars. Long gashes, deep punctures, some cutting through metal and into exposed dragon bone beneath. Black-robed cultivators wielding disc treasures moved among them, employing secret techniques to mend the damage. From the nature of the wounds, Han Li could tell they were likely caused by only one or two types of primordial beasts. Just then, a purple-robed figure caught up beside him. "Sandthorn snakes and man-faced scorpions," the man said casually. "One has blade-sharp tails, the other spike-like pincers. They're common in the Sea of Sand. Nothing extraordinary individually, but they swarm in great numbers." Han Li turned slightly. So it is fellow Taoist Shi. The speaker was Shi Chuankong, whom Han Li had encountered in the arena before. Shi laughed heartily. "Good to see you, fellow Taoist Li. I've waited over 3 months in this city for this ship. Another delay and I'd have died of boredom." "With so many arenas here, boredom seems unlikely," Han Li replied with a faint smile. "I only gambled a little to pass the time," she said, looking somewhat embarrassed. "By the way, where's the little girl who accompanied you before?" Before Han Li could answer, a fierce black wind swept in from a northern beacon tower, A middle-aged man in an embroidered black robe appeared, a golden badge at his waist marked with the words Primordial Origin City. "That's the ship overseer," she explained quietly. "Sent by the City Lord's manor. Since the incident 8 years ago, only golden immortals handle this duty." "It's time," she added, glancing subtly at the golden ring on Han Li's finger. The overseer descended onto a nearby ship, and an administrator soon emerged to begin boarding. After all passengers were aboard, the administrator recited the ship's rules, identical to those on the jade badge, then declared the departure. Most cultivators quickly returned to their cabins. "They say the same things every time," she grumbled. "Brother Li, it's your first voyage, right? The sea of sand is worth seeing, but I've had my fill. I'll leave the scenery to you." "Safe travels," Han Li replied. She laughed. "No need to be so distant. Call me Brother Shi from now on." Han Li only smiled. Shrugging, she strolled away. Han Li watched him go, still pondering the demonic man's excessive friendliness. Though no ill intent was apparent, caution seemed wise. As these thoughts lingered, the ship rose from the city wall, then glided downward along the sheer cliff face toward the endless sea of sand below. Just as it reached the surface, all the runes along the hull flared to life. A yellow radiance burst forth, forming a vast protective barrier, while a peculiar primordial aura spread outward. Understanding dawned on Han Li. The ship was masking itself with a protective array rooted in the essence of a powerful primordial beast, disguising its presence among its kin. The ship settled, bobbed once, then moved forward smoothly. Looking over the railing, Han Li saw that the metallic hull repelled the sand, allowing the vessel to skim just above it. Suddenly the light intensified, and the ship surged forward like a loosed arrow. Ahead lay only a boundless expanse of yellow, silent, desolate, seemingly lifeless. The rules forbade releasing spiritual sense, lest sensitive primordial beasts be alerted. Han Li had no desire to invite trouble. The journey would take at least half a year. After gazing at the monotonous sands for 2 hours, even Han Li grew weary and returned to his cabin to await what lay ahead. Han Li's cabin was broad and orderly, nearly twice the size of an ordinary room, divided cleanly into inner and outer chambers. The inner chamber held a simple bed for rest, while the outer chamber contained a redwood table and a grey meditation cushion. Upon the table lay several spirit fruits, not of supreme grade, yet exuding a sweet, alluring fragrance that filled the air. As Han Li stepped inside, the ring on his finger shimmered with golden light, transforming into a beetle that fluttered down onto the cushion before shifting again into a small girl clad in a red coat. Jin Tong's gaze immediately snapped to the spirit fruits. Her hand darted out like lightning, seizing an oval fruit speckled with golden seeds. She bit into it with delight, and a rich fruity scent instantly flooded the room. "Why didn't you let me come out earlier, Uncle?" she asked through mouthfuls. That fellow seemed easy to get along with. Han Li replied calmly, "That man's aura bears traces of demonic cultivation, yet it is oddly different. Without using my eye of truth, I cannot see through him. More importantly, he clearly knew you were the ring, yet still asked after you. I can't discern his intentions." "So he might be scheming against us?" Jin Tong asked. "I can't be sure, but in unfamiliar territory, caution is best," Han Li said. Jin Tong grinned slyly. "If he dares come after us, I'll have another golden immortal nascent soul to snack on." Han Li could only fall silent at her words. Just as he was about to caution her, his expression stiffened. "What is it, Uncle?" Jin Tong asked quickly. "An extremely powerful aura just locked onto the ship, then vanished. Didn't you feel it?" Han Li frowned. Before she could answer, he raised a hand. "There, it's back again." Jin Tong focused hard, sensing only a faint trace. "Did you feel that, Xiaobai?" She asked hesitantly. The jade pixie hanging at Han Li's waist remained motionless. "How dare you ignore me?" Jin Tong snapped, hands on her hips. "You want a beating?" "I wasn't ignoring you," the pixie replied calmly. "I sensed it the first time. I simply didn't want to embarrass you." "So you're better than me?" Jin Tong arched a brow. "Not at all," the pixie hurriedly said. "I'm from the primordial land, so I'm more sensitive to primordial auras." "Can you tell where it comes from?" Han Li asked. "I was born in the primordial land, but captured by primordial hunters soon after. I only learned of my origins later. I can sense the aura, but not identify it," the pixie replied. At that moment, the faint aura swept across the ship once more. "Stay here," Hanli instructed Jin Tong, then flew out onto the deck. Only about 20 people stood there in small groups, chatting leisurely. None appeared to have sensed anything amiss. Across the deck, Hanli spotted Shi Chuankong, who was scanning the surroundings with a strange expression. Shi Chuankong paused when he saw Hanli, offering a knowing smile. Hanli returned a slight nod before heading back inside. After sweeping the ship several more times, the aura finally vanished. Yet Hanli's vigilance only deepened. 5 months passed in the blink of an eye. The journey remained calm, and the ship was nearing the primordial land. In the early morning, a cool breeze blew from afar. Hanli stood on deck, hands clasped behind his back, blue light flickering in his eyes as he gazed toward the horizon. At the edge of his vision lay a faint patch of green, an oasis in the endless sands. Nearly 100 passengers crowded the deck, eager to disembark. Jin Tong stood beside Hanli, mimicking his posture. "Still worried about that aura?" she asked. "No," Hanli replied. "I'm thinking about our path ahead. The maps we bought differ greatly from the one Worm 3 gave me. Her route doesn't seem the safest, likely incomplete, since I haven't truly joined the Reincarnation Palace." Jin Tong smiled casually. "If there's no safe road, we'll carve one ourselves." At that instant, alarmed shouts rang out. "What's that? Something's coming!" Hanli turned to see a black tide surging over the horizon. Countless giant creatures with human faces and scorpion bodies, tails thick and hooked with crescent blades that gleamed coldly. "Man-faced scorpions," someone cried. Though not the strongest sand demons, their numbers were vast. Even true immortals would struggle against such a tide. A deep voice sounded from the ship's upper level. No need to panic. The overseer stood calmly behind the railing. These creatures posed no real threat. Steady yourselves. Anyone who falls overboard will not be rescued. Those with weaker cultivation quickly retreated from the railing. Hanli, however, kept his eyes fixed ahead. "There's something else beneath them," he said. Jin Tong peered closer. The sand beneath the tide undulated violently. "It's coming," Hanli said, pulling her down. The scorpion tide blocked the ship's path, piling atop one another into a black mound. The overseer frowned just as the ship crashed into it with a heavy thud. The vessel shuddered, its yellow barrier flaring as engraved patterns lit up. With a surge of power, the ship forced its way through, cracking exoskeletons in rapid succession. Cheers erupted as stability returned. Hanli gripped Jin Tong with one hand and leaned over the railing. Below, the sands churned violently. Countless yellow sand beasts, maggot-like, dog-sized, writhed beneath the ship. "They're sand beasts eating the ship from below," Hanli shouted. Panic spread. The ship's hull was already riddled with holes, larger beasts gnawing frantically at the dragon bones at the bow. Featureless save for circular, fang-lined mouths, they devoured metal and bone alike as the sea of sand roiled beneath. The ship overseer's expression shifted at once. Should these sand beasts gnaw through the dragon bone framework, the vessel would become fragile as rotten wood and would never survive the journey to the primordial land. A grim chill crossed his face. He shot out from the ship, descending like a streak of lightning toward the sea of sand. The sand beasts and man-faced scorpions were acutely sensitive to cultivators. The instant they sensed his aura, they swarmed toward him in a frenzy. Black ripples surged from the ship overseer's body, expanding outward to envelop both himself and the ship. A spirit domain had unfolded, restrained and controlled, covering barely 100 feet, as if he wished to avoid stirring greater danger. Demonic beasts that entered the domain were instantly entangled by wisps of black mist, their bodies corroding and dissolving into foul slurry. Even the 3 larger sand beasts, stronger than the rest, failed to approach within 30 feet before disintegrating as well. Is that a spirit domain? As expected of a golden immortal ship overseer. Voices of awe rang out from the ship. Yet at that very moment, Hanli's expression changed. He seized Jin Tong and retreated at full speed. An instant later, the sea of sand ahead erupted like a volcano. Torrents of sand blasted skyward, flinging man-faced scorpions and sand beasts in all directions. From the upheaval surged a colossal sand beast, more than twice the size of the ship. Its cavernous maw looked capable of swallowing heaven and earth as it dove down with crushing force. The ship overseer's face drained of color. He turned to flee, but a dark red vortex suddenly formed within the sand beast's mouth. A terrifying suction force burst forth, ignoring his spirit domain entirely and pinning him in place. With a single bite, the monster devoured the ship overseer along with half the vessel. The shattered ship plunged toward the sand sea, its passengers swallowed instantly by the swarm. Agonized screams echoed as the stench of blood spread through the air. Aside from just over 100 true immortals who reacted swiftly enough to survive, all others perished in the blink of an eye. Run! The surviving true immortals scattered in blind panic. Amid the chaos, a thought flickered through Han Li's mind. Where was Shi Chuangkong? He had not appeared at all, and Han Li was certain he would not fall so easily, but there was no time to dwell on it. Han Li prepared to flee toward the primordial land with Jin Tong, only to see the giant sand beast charging straight at them. His pupils tightened. Though fearsome, it was merely mid-golden immortal stage and posed no true threat to him. Just as he was about to strike, Jin Tong's excited voice rang out. "I'll handle it, uncle." Before Han Li could speak, she sprang forward, transforming into a golden beetle and pouncing at the beast. Han Li paused briefly, then chose not to interfere, watching calmly with hands clasped behind his back. Mid-flight, Jin Tong slashed her forelegs, releasing hundreds of translucent golden streaks that scattered before converging on the sand beast from both sides. Sensing danger, the monster halted and raised two massive pillars of swirling sand, each wrapped in yellow light that pulsed with law power. Golden light blazed in Jin Tong's eyes. The streaks brightened and fused into two enormous golden arcs thousands of feet long, slicing cleanly through the sand pillars without slowing. The sand beast did not dodge. Instead, a brighter dark red vortex bloomed in its mouth, unleashing a ferocious suction that swallowed the golden arcs whole. Han Li's eyes flickered with mild surprise, yet he still did not intervene. Jin Tong erupted into radiant light, becoming a blazing golden sphere as she charged forward. The vortex flared brighter still, its suction multiplying as nearby space collapsed inward. In a flash, the golden sphere vanished into the monster's maw. Han Li's white jade pendant glimmered as the Pixiu cried anxiously, "Master, aren't you going to save her?" "There's no need," Han Li replied with a faint smile. Before the Pixiu could argue, a tortured roar exploded from the sand beast. It collapsed onto the sand, writhing violently. A dull thud sounded as a lance of golden light burst from its body, tearing open a massive hole. Thick white fluid poured out, indistinguishable as blood or something else. More heavy thuds followed as golden light erupted repeatedly from within, riddling the beast with holes. Its convulsions intensified, accompanied by a thunderous, chilling howl. "Seems I worried for nothing," the Pixiu muttered, falling silent. At last, the giant sand beast let out a final roar before exploding into countless chunks of flesh. Jin Tong flew out from the remains, slightly battered, patches of her golden carapace dulled as if corroded, though the injuries were minor. In her grasp was a yellow crystal the size of a human head, within which a dark red vortex churned, radiating formidable law power. Though the danger seemed past, Han Li frowned slightly. The final roar of the beast felt ominous. Jin Tong circled him proudly. "I killed it, uncle. Do I get a reward?" "Once we leave here, eat as much as you like," Han Li chuckled, reaching for the crystal. "Let me examine it." "No, it's mine." She darted back, reverting to human form as the crystal vanished in a flash of gold. Han Li could only shake his head. "Let's go." At that instant, the entire sea of sand trembled violently. Towering waves of sand erupted as a terrifying aura surged upward, approaching at unbelievable speed. Han Li's expression changed. He grabbed Jin Tong as thunderstorm wings unfurled from his back, vanishing in a flash of lightning. The sand sea exploded where they had stood, an enormous head lunging upward to bite, only to snap at empty air. Nearly 100 kilometers away, Han Li reappeared. The head belonged to an even more monstrous sand beast, at least 10 times larger than the one Jin Tong had slain. Its aura surged close to the high zenith stage. Han Li's face darkened, yet he did not flee recklessly, wary of the unfamiliar sands. The mountain-like beast had no eyes, yet its fury was palpable. It opened its massive mouth and unleashed a deafening roar, shaking space itself. In the next heartbeat, Its head burst from the sand again, lunging at Han Li and Jin Tong with lightning speed, closing to within 100 feet in an instant. Golden light flared as Han Li retreated sharply, while the colossal sand beast conjured a vast dark red vortex. Though they had fled nearly 10 kilometers, an overwhelming suction seized them at once, dragging them toward the abyssal maw. The air around Han Li suddenly tightened, halting him in mid-flight as a terrifying suction dragged him toward the gaping maw of the colossal sand beast. Jin Tong's eyes flashed fiercely as she prepared to leap forward, but Han Li stopped her at once, flicking an incantation seal that transformed her into a ring resting upon his finger. Already perilously close, Han Li did not retreat. Instead, he surged forward. Arriving at the sand beast's massive mouth in the blink of an eye, golden ripples burst from his body and swept outward, forming a vast golden spirit domain nearly 20 kilometers wide, enveloping part of the sand beast. Within this domain, all motion slowed drastically, including the devastating suction from its jaws. Seizing the opening, Han Li steadied himself and unfurled his thunderstorm wings, vanishing in a peal of thunder before reappearing behind the sand beast's mountainous head. With a low roar, he assumed the giant mountain ape form. A giant green sword materialized in his grasp, and he swung it down with overwhelming force. A massive crescent of dark green swordlight tore through the air, etched with countless runes that pulsed with formidable law power. The sand beast twisted aside as best it could, a translucent yellow membrane forming over the back of its head, yet its immense bulk, coupled with the crippling time domain, rendered escape futile. The sword projection struck true, the yellow membrane flickering briefly before shattering apart. The blade carved a wound nearly 1,000 feet long across the sand beast's body. Yellow blood gushed forth, but Han Li felt no triumph. Against such a gargantuan foe, it was little more than a shallow cut. The sand beast roared in fury. Brilliant yellow light erupted from its body, runes swirling wildly as a vast yellow spirit domain expanded outward, spanning nearly 100 kilometers. The instant Han Li was engulfed, crushing gravity pressed down upon him with hundreds of times its usual force. Before he could react, a thunderous howl rang out. The sand beast's tail, still free of the time domain, swept toward him with terrifying might. Though slowed upon entering the golden domain, it remained devastatingly fast. Weighted down by immense gravity, Han Li could not evade and instead slashed forward with his sword. A deafening boom shook the heavens. The golden ape was hurled away like a rag doll, crashing into the sea of sand below. Half its body sank into the dunes, golden blood trickling from its lips, the webbing of its sword hand torn, but the injuries were otherwise light. The sands churned violently, forming a massive vortex that sought to drag him under. At the same time, several sand beasts burst from the dunes, lunging at him. Though smaller, they were beings of pure sand, each radiating the aura of a golden immortal. The colossal sand beast also turned, lunging once more, while the flesh around its wound rapidly fused, already close to full recovery. Han Li's brows knit. He slashed his giant sword in a wide arc as 3 azure bamboo cloud-swarm swords flashed into existence, their peerless sword chi shredding the surrounding sand. Freed from the vortex, golden lightning flared from his thunderstorm wings, though suppressed to barely 30% by the enemy's domain. In a flash of lightning, Han Li vanished and reappeared nearly 10 kilometers away, narrowly escaping being devoured. His wings blazed again as he fled like a streak of lightning. The sand beast pursued with furious roars, but its speed lagged slightly behind. After several rapid flashes, Han Li finally escaped the yellow spirit domain. Another surge of lightning carried him thousands of kilometers away. With a flick of his sleeve, arcs of lightning formed a teleportation array. Thunder cracked, light flared, and Han Li vanished, leaving the sand beast roaring in frustration as its tail smashed into the dunes, churning sand across thousands of kilometers. Above a dense forest, golden lightning rippled through space, unfolding into an array. Han Li emerged within it, restored to human form, his swords circling protectively. He stowed them away and scanned the surroundings, finally releasing a quiet sigh of relief. Jin Tong sprang from his finger at once. "Why did you run, Uncle? You could have let it swallow me. I'd have wrecked it from the inside." "That smaller sand beast already hurt you," Han Li replied calmly. The larger one was far more dangerous. I wouldn't let you take that risk." "Master is right," the Jade Pixiu added. "Safety comes first." "Xiaobai, are you calling me stupid?" Jintong shouted, pouncing at Han Li's leg and threatening to bite the white jade pendant. The Pixiu shrieked and begged for mercy. Han Li grabbed Jintong by her braids and lifted her like a radish. "Enough. We're in the primordial land now. Be careful." Jintong fell silent, though her glare remained fierce. While the Pixiu dared not speak, Han Li surveyed his surroundings. They stood within a vast primordial forest stretching endlessly. The origin chi was as abundant as the finest spirit veins of the northern glacial immortal region, yet chaotic and unstable. The Pixiu inhaled deeply, eyes closed in bliss. Descending onto a massive banyan tree branch, Han Li noted its staggering size. Over 1,000 feet tall, its branches broad enough for 10 people to sit comfortably. All around, trees and plants towered to absurd proportions, making him feel minuscule by comparison. "This place is amazing," Jintong murmured. "Are all plants here this huge?" Han Li asked. "This is normal for the primordial land," the Pixiu replied. "Elsewhere, the plants are the ones that are small." Han Li nodded thoughtfully. The Pixiu warned him of the extreme violence of the local beasts, and Han Li agreed to remain vigilant. Almost immediately, a ferocious roar erupted. A black ape with a dark red horn lunged from behind a tree. Han Li flicked a finger, an azure streak flashing forth and cleaving the beast in two. "So you weren't exaggerating," Han Li said calmly. At least here he no longer had to worry about the heavenly court. Though perilous, the primordial land was survivable with his strength. He summoned 2 maps, one from Worm 3, another from Primordial Origin City, studied them briefly, then put them away. With a sweep of his sleeve, the green jade flying carriage appeared. "Let's go." Danger abounded, but where few cultivators tread, treasures surely awaited. Excitement stirred in his heart as Jintong and the Pixiu leapt aboard. With an incantation, the carriage shot forward, streaking away as a beam of green light.